With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
Love espresso, drip coffee, and cold brew? With the Ninja Luxe Cafe, if you can crave it, you can brew it. Espresso, balanced. Drip coffee, rich. Cold brew in a flash. With Barista Assist technology, you brew with no stress and no guesswork and make perfect silky microfoam hands-free from dairy or plant-based milks. Shop the Ninja Luxe Cafe at ninjakitchen.com.
You set the table, put on a playlist, even made the lasagna from scratch. And now you're wearing it. OxyClean Max Force Spray tackles tough, set-in stains the first time. Adulting is hard. Fighting stains shouldn't be. OxyClean Max Force. It's not clean unless it's OxyClean.
Today's top story, the flavor merger of the century between the Peanut Butter Group and Chocolatey Corp. Joining me is a PBC executive.
Thanks for having me, Barry.
Now, how did you know the merger and the byproduct of it, Jif peanut butter and chocolate flavored spread, would be a success?
You know, it was a gut feeling, a rumbling, if you will. Besides, they're two titans of taste.
Very true. Goes great with pretzels.
And pancakes.
Apples too, I bet. Try Jif PBC today.
In the time it takes us to say we're making a damn delicious caramel iced coffee with Folgers Instant Coffee, you know we're all about that drizzle. You could be savoring every sip. Damn right. It's Folgers Instant.
Hello and welcome to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. We are so excited to bring you this show.
Our podcast is all about unraveling all of your favorite mysteries from the Assassin's Creed games. Each episode will be talking about a different topic in the Assassin's Creed universe. From Pieces of Eden, Solar Flares, and the Isu, to the Hidden Ones, the Order of Ancients, and of course, the Animus, we will seek to uncover it all.
So join us and maybe even take a leap of faith.
Hello and welcome to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. My name is Shelby. You also know me as She-Cup, and I'm also joined here with my co-host for the evening.
Hey, I am Austin or Teacup.
Yes, you are. And this is the Assassin's Creed Lorecast, as I've already said, and it is a brand new season on the Assassin's Creed Lorecast, which is an exciting day. It's going to be a fun series. It's one I know several people have commented or left reviews wanting. So with that, I'm going to let Austin kind of give us an introduction to this new series.
So I am titling this series Rulers, Politicians, and Other Famous People, Assassin or Templar. And basically we'll go through several really key famous people and discuss if we know their allegiance or what we think their allegiance would be. So I will preface that this series will offer a lot of opinions. And I want to preface this that we will offer some of our opinions, but that's our opinions. And if you have a different one and you are just like, no, I think that this way, we love that. Hop in our Discord, which we'll talk about in the mid-break, and come lay out respectfully, of course, lay out your opinions and all of that stuff. But I just want to say that we'll be talking about some historical facts, mainly their involvement in the series, if there is any, how we see them in the games is what I'm going to be focusing a lot on, and just kind of offering an opinion of this is what I think they are, or this is what the game tells us they are. Do we agree? So this will be focused similarly to a character deep dive, but not exactly. Like today, we're talking about George Washington. I'm not going to go through everything that George Washington ever did because you can look it up on Wikipedia or read his history books or the hundreds of books that are written about George Washington. I'll give a brief overview of the historical character, give a brief overview of the games, if any, and then the second half we will discuss the evidence that is presented. Any questions or thoughts from my co-host?
I think we should dive right into this historical character.
All right. So as I said, we are talking about George Washington, the first president of the United States of America, leader of the Revolutionary War. Well, leader of the army. So he's born in 1732 in the American colonies. So he is born in the American colonies.
That, like, I saw that in the show notes and literally had to fact check you because I was like, there's no way he was born in the colonies. Like, that cannot be true. Yeah, sure was. Google it, people. Which that was shocking to me.
Which, I mean, makes sense because, I mean, English people are settling the, like, what would become the United States area, those 13 colonies, as early as the 1600s, I believe, if not even before that in the 1500s. So it's possible. So he would rise in military. I tried to fact check this because there's a lot of rumors about, you know, him chopping down the cherry tree and being honest. Like, we know that that's not an actual story. That's just a myth that was put out in history. I could not find any reference that if he actually had wooden teeth or not.
According to my history professor in college, he did not have wooden teeth, but he did have a set of fake teeth, and those teeth came from slaves.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Great. Not great.
You asked. So I'm giving you the information that was given to me.
This is also the same history professor, I'm assuming, who told you that George Washington could have convinced you to eat your socks.
Yes. Meaning that he was a very charismatic man and was very good at motivating people, in case that euphemism went over your head.
Yes. So he is an officer, commissioned an officer during the 7 Years' War, or you might know it as the French and Indian War, but across the world, it's called the 7 Years' War between France and England. And so he rises to commander of the Patriot Army during the Revolutionary War. He would then become our first president. He wins every electoral vote. He is the only president to do so.
I mean, can you imagine someone doing that now? Like, it's just so completely like that would never happen again.
Right. And there's not that many electoral votes. Like, there's not 500 electoral votes at this time. There's probably maybe a couple hundred if you're counting there's at least 26 senators. So there's probably 100, I give or take. It's not as impressive as winning all 500 electoral votes that we have now, but still pretty impressive. He owned a large estate at Mount Vernon. As Shelby alluded to, he owned slaves. And that is just a fact. That is a historical fact that he owned slaves and owned people.
Yeah. And also that Mount Vernon was a literal plantation. Like, it just was. It's just the reality of wealthy people back then typically owned slaves. And that's a part of our history that we absolutely have to wrestle with.
And like, there is a moral judgment to be made about owning another person. Now, I'm not saying that negates anything else he did in what he did in history or whatever, but it is a fact that we should and do judge him on.
Mm-hmm.
And then he eventually resigns after his second term. He sets a precedent that would not be broken until FDR was a long time, nearly 200 years, 250 years, and would eventually then become law in the 22nd Amendment. And that limits our presidents to 2 terms. They cannot serve more than 2 terms. So let's talk about Assassin's Creed. So we first meet Washington in Assassin's Creed when we were playing as Hatham. You might have missed this, Shelby, when you were playing through your first game, but when you infiltrate a fort after you have met with Keo, Connor's mother, and you're trying to discover Edward Braddock's plans, you infiltrate a fort where George Washington is talking to another soldier and talking about how he distrusts Braddock and thinks the commander is overly brutal. So that is our first introduction to George Washington in Assassin's Creed 3. Now, we do know that George Washington was stationed in forts in the kind of New York, Boston area during the French and Indian War. We do not see Washington again until we encounter him at the Continental Congress, where he is made commander of the Continental Army, which is one of my favorite, as I've said many times, is one of my favorite scenes in the entire time, because they signed the Declaration of Independence, or not but they have the Continental Congress. They make Washington the leader of the Continental Army, and Washington's like giving a speech. And then Charles Lee makes a comment, and Connor like stands up and interrupts the speech and is like, "Charles Lee." It's my favorite thing that happens.
Like, I don't remember in the game, like, does the speech stop? Or I think he keeps on giving the speech.
Yeah, it's meant to be like, oh, this is a like side conversation that is happening, but the way it is voice acted and directed in the game is just like, this would have caused the biggest distraction, because we like to think of like the Continental Congress being as large as like our Congresses, but it wasn't. It was not a lot of people, and they were in a small room. Like, there, you wouldn't be able to have a bunch of side conversations going on when they were meeting.
Right.
Connor then helps Washington throughout the war. The wiki states that they have a friendship, but I disagree. I think they have a distant but civil relationship. I think that Washington doesn't know what to do with Connor, and Connor does not fully trust Washington.
Yeah, I mean, it's very obvious that Connor does not trust Washington, and I honestly don't think Washington fully trusts Connor either. I think they have more than just an acquaintance. I would say that they have a professional working relationship.
Which is very obvious when Connor cuts ties with Washington, which is one of the best scenes, where he leaves, and then at the Battle of Monmouth, when he leaves and drops one of the sickest lines in all of Assassin's Creed, which is, "Enjoy your victory, Commander. It's the last one I win for you."
True. I love that line. It's so good.
I love all that. After the war, we don't get much interaction with Washington. Connor's focus is mainly Charles Lee, and that's really where we start with all of that. But we do experience an alternate universe called the Tyranny of Washington, which I'm going to use as evidence, even though it is an alternate universe that is projected by the Apple of Eden. I'm a similar thing of, drunk words are sober thoughts. And how someone acts in a projection of the Apple of Eden might be showing them at their worst, but that doesn't mean that they're incapable of what is happening in that projection.
Okay.
And in this, Washington becomes King Washington because he is corrupted by the Apple of Eden, and he basically rules with an iron fist and is all kinds of terrible, eradicating native people, oppressing the people, being all 10 times the villain that George III was, which I do think is like, I think that plays into, that was a real fear for the people when they made the office of president, because there were a lot of Americans who did not want a strong executive branch. They did not want a single person to be the head of the executive branch. And there were fear that Washington would become a king, which is why like his precedent of stepping down after 2 terms was such an important one in our nation's history. And the like working of our democracy saying that like, oh, he's gonna step down and let someone else come and rule with power and have a peaceful transition of power, which was unprecedented in the time.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's a fear we have today too. Given some of the recent news in our country, I think it's an understandable one to have. But I think George Washington absolutely does set an important precedent, and we may talk later about this, but I don't know if I fully agree with your take on that projection in the Apple of Eden, but we can get into that after the mid-break.
All right, let's go to mid-break then.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks, or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Visit USAA.com/bundle.
Bundle savings are off total premium, not available in all states or in all situations. To qualify, auto policy must be active prior to property policy issue, subject to change. Restrictions apply. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
Eczema isn't always obvious, but it's real. And so is the relief from Ebglyss. After an initial dosing phase, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin at 16 weeks. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Ebglyss, lebrikizumab LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Ebglyss can be used with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Ebglyss. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Ebglyss. Before starting Ebglyss, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Searching for real relief? Ask your doctor about Ebglyss and visit ebglyss.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
This summer, try the new Strato Frappuccino blended beverage at Starbucks. It's the classic blended iced coffee you know and love, now topped with a creamy layer of handcrafted brown sugar cold foam. Available for a limited time. Your Strato Frappuccino is ready at Starbucks.
Ma cos'è? Shoot! Shoot a flying demon!
Quite a carriage you got there. Where did you buy it, if you don't mind me asking?
Ask all you want, Freddy. You'll never get an answer.
Damn it all. Was it my eyebrows?
Yes, and your face, voice, and body.
What have you done? We used them. They were not ready for firing. You could have gotten us all killed. Let me see. His breath is more fatal than our cannons. Only when you two fools are shooting them. There. Try it.
All right. Welcome to the middle of the show. This is where we talk about all the things that have to do with the podcast and not the lore of Assassin's Creed. Now, the first thing we always do is thank all of our patrons. Thank you all so much for all of your awesome support. I don't think we have anyone to shout out specially today, but if you want to join the Patreon, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/ACLorecast and join at one of the tiers. And at certain tiers, you can even join us on the show, and you always get ad-free and early access to episodes. So there's tons of benefits, including merch, all kinds of stuff. So check it out if you're interested. And if you can't support us financially, the next best way to support us is leaving a rating, a review, a comment of some kind. And so this one comes from Jason I, who commented on our Hatham character deep dive and said, "Super, my favorite character. He is so charismatic and impish." I agree. Hatham is an amazing character, one of my favorite in the series. Thank you so much for leaving that awesome review. And the last thing we have to talk about in the middle of the show is our Discord server, which you can join if you want to talk about any upcoming Assassin's Creed game or any news or any, old games, whatever you want to talk about in relationship to Assassin's Creed or any other video game series. Come on over to Discord and join us because we have a great time. And I think that's all we have to talk about in the middle of the show. So I think we can get into it.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Una silla de masajes puede parecer extravagante. 8 configuraciones diferentes, intensidad ajustable, además es calefaccionado. Y se siente tan bien. Sí, una silla de masajes puede parecer extravagante. Y dos, bueno, aún más. Pero cuando esas sillas de masajes vienen con un auto, se vuelven bastante prácticas. El nuevo Volkswagen Tiguan 2025 con funciones premium como los asientos delanteros con masaje disponibles. Solo parece extravagante.
Malaka! Malaka! Malaka!
But that madman, the self-proclaimed Bishop of the Ruins, is our biggest critic. He calls our playing the Devil's Bagpipes.
I will sleep with anyone as long as they agree to be executed in the morning.
Like Xanthides.
He was well satisfied with his bargain. Who is this toothsome fellow?
My queen, this is,
Well?
It is a generous offer. But I've already pledged my life to this woman.
Aya, you have chosen well.
All right. So let's lay out some evidence. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out evidence for is he an assassin? And then I will lay out evidence for is he a Templar? And then we will discuss what we think. So evidence for is he an assassin? Washington helps Connor a lot. This is just a fact. Like, they might have a working relationship, not necessarily a friendship, but he does help Connor accomplish his goals. And Connor, at least in a surface level, trusts him to not be terribly awful to the people he's leading. So that is something that needs to be there. Achilles also believes that he is the colony's best chance at freedom. So Achilles also trusts him. I think that that is a point, and we do need to take like the actual like racial identity of these two people into account when they're bringing in trust in this man. Because Achilles is a black man, a freed black man, and Connor is a native person. The fact that they do trust them in this way is significant to this evidence. I do want to say that like there is more. I have more points for him being a Templar, but I think there is. These are very heavy. Like, these are very strong cases and arguments, and he does work to undo Templar influence, albeit unknowingly, but he does work to do that. And then after he and Connor see the tyranny of Washington vision, Washington does reject the apple. Gives it up. He doesn't want to work with it. He wants it far away from him. He basically tells Connor to throw it into the sea. Now, is he a Templar? Even when presented with overwhelming evidence of the Templar conspiracy, or the fact that Charles Lee is not a man that he should trust, he still refuses to dismiss Lee, and he refuses to believe Connor in these situations. I think that this is... You could write this off as Washington just trying to keep the peace within his own army, given what we know about Charles Lee from a historical side, not just who he is in Assassin's Creed. Because, you know, Washington is getting questioned of his tactical movements from the Southern generals a lot, especially Henry Knox. Like, they question his leaderships, they question his decisions and what he does and his leadership. So I think he is trying to keep the peace. I think you could argue that, but it is a moment that like he keeps Lee in power, even though Connor is time and time again showing evidence that Washington should not keep Lee in power. It is only when Charles Lee, to quote the musical Hamilton, shits the bed at the Battle of Monmouth, that Washington finally starts to take Connor seriously. And this is really the breaking point for Connor with Washington. Where he delivers that line I talk about, because he's like, Lee did this, and Lafayette basically backs up Connor and is like, yeah, like Lee caused us to almost lose this battle. Connor basically rescues a stalemate from what would have been destruction. And I think we have to talk about this, and I had mentioned this earlier. Washington owns people, and that is a big thing. He owns people. And he is at least okay with that reality. It might not be his preferred reality, but he is okay with that reality because he doesn't free them. He doesn't say, okay, you can work for a wage now. He keeps his slaves. And I think when you own people, that's a big tick against you from being an assassin. In the Tyranny of Washington DLC, he is all too eager to become a tyrant. Like, it is a switch almost automatically. in the game, if you take a certain point of view, you could argue the point that Washington only seems to care about undoing the systems of power that oppress people when it benefits him. And maybe that's an unfair assumption. I want to say that I am like judging him based on games. And I think this is a historical fiction. I am not arguing at a point that the historical character of Washington was focused on destroying like the freedom of the people. I don't believe that. But based on the evidence that I'm given in game, this is what I am looking at. So I think we can have some thoughts. When I started this research, I was 100% in the, Washington is going to be an assassin. Like, there's going to be so much evidence that pushes him. I thought he would be this champion of freedom. I'm not as sure that he is that much of champion of freedom. I'm not fully convinced that, no, he would be a Templar if given the choice. But there seem to be a lot of evidence that you could argue that he is indeed a Templar, which I find really difficult because I really like Washington as a historical character, even though he did own people. I do think that he made a lot of good decisions and a lot of good precedents for our country. So that's where I'm at. I'm really at I don't know, but I'm not as fully in he would be an assassin. I could see him. I would not be surprised if it came out in game that, Washington was actually a Templar.
Interesting. I have so many thoughts. So first of all, I don't necessarily think he is an assassin or a Templar. I think that he is working with the assassins. I think that he is not necessarily an agent of the assassins, but like that he has allied with them. And that's where he is. Now, I have several things. I think your biggest argument for Washington being a Templar is twofold. Number one, that he keeps Charles Lee in power. And number two, the vision presented by the Apple of Eden. So I don't feel like these things are necessarily as pro-Templar as you've articulated. So let's go for the first point. So Charles Lee. So historically, Charles Lee was a general of the Continental Army. That is a significant rank and not something to be ignored, even though we do hate the character. And even though he was a failure as a leader in the army. So to me, it makes perfect sense that Washington would not want to just fire him, especially fire a general, and especially even further, fire a general on the word of a native man and a black man. How would that look to his peers?
You got a point.
Okay, second point of evidence. So I don't think that taking the vision of an Apple of Eden as pro-Templar, I don't necessarily think that that's, like, I don't think it's a neutral thing. I don't think it's a thing that presents the truth. To me, it's a piece of technology from an enemy godlike alternate species of predecessors to humans. It wants to manipulate you so that it can use you. So to me, of course, it would present you at your absolute worst, your most terrible person. And so to me, I don't think that's necessarily indicative of the way one would really behave. I don't think Washington would really want to become a king. However, I think you can make the argument that anyone who owns another human being already feels like a king. So what more does he need? I think there's that argument to make. And then my last little point, you said earlier that like undoing system of oppression when it benefits you. To me, I'm like, okay, that's not an argument at all, because I feel like that's a pretty standard thing that someone who's privileged, a position of power in the army, wealthy landowner in this time, like, yeah, why would they be concerned with undoing any other system of oppression except for the ones that are important to you? There's nothing else that motivates them there. And so to me, I'm like, the assassins are a diverse group of people made up of women, made up of many different races of people. And so because of that, at this point in time, they're at a disadvantage in the world. Whereas, you know, people like the body of representatives, the electoral college, this army, like that's going to be mainly white landowning men, because that's who could vote at that time. And so to me, the assassins are always at a place of disadvantage. And just because Washington pushes back on some of the things they want him to do does not necessarily mean that he was a Templar.
I think that is all a great and well articulated point with that. And I think that like the points that are articulated really comes down to like, yes, you're right. Like, I do see your points at Charles Lee, and I will concede the Apple of Eden. I think I do agree with you that he does work with the assassins. At some level, I think he eventually does know about the assassins. And for a long time, long time, the assassins are at the center of power in the American government, which I think is probably set up by Connor's and Washington's relationship.
Yeah. And like, if he wasn't an agent of the assassins, how would that happen? How would they get that foothold, especially when Connor walks away from Washington?
Right. And to just further that point of, we'll talk about a couple presidents, but we won't talk about all the presidents. We could do a series on, would this president be pro-assassin or pro-Templar? Society is not ready to hear that the majority of them would be pro-Templar. But so I just think that with this, Washington, it's like I said, I don't think he is a Templar, but I don't necessarily would be super surprised if they said, oh yeah, he was actually, friends with the Templars. I would be surprised if they did that, just because like Ubisoft is an international company, but the primary of their sales is in America. And I don't think they're going to villainize one of, like, in their actual narrative, and villainize one of the like great heroes of American history.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's fair. And I do think you could make the argument that like maybe he did work with Templars and assassins, especially once he became president. I think that could be a fair argument too. But yeah, I would not say that he like was a Templar.
No. And I think a lot of these will come up with like, unless we have like evidence that they joined the order, one of the orders, I'm not going to rule one way or the other.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this was a great episode. I love this discussion. I'll be really interested to see if we end up on opposite sides of the discussion every time. We'll see. I think a lot of time we'll probably agree, but to be determined on this one. I definitely never would have anticipated you saying that Washington was leaning Templar. But anyway, with all that being said, this was a great first episode to kick off our 6th season of this podcast, which is crazy. For now, I think that's all we've got. So thank you all so much for listening to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. You can find us on Twitter at AC Lorecast.
If you have any lore questions or topics to unpack, join our Cups Podcasting and More Discord server. It's the best place on the internet. You can also support us financially through our Patreon. Find us on patreon.com/Assassin's Creed Lorecast. The Assassin's Creed Lorecast is part of the Robots Radio Network. For more information about the Robots Radio Network, join the Discord server via the link in our episode's description.
If you enjoyed the show or learned something new today, please subscribe, leave us a review, and join the Patreon. And if you enjoyed our intro and outro music, make sure you give a big thank you to Pipeman Studios. Thank you, Pipeman. Thanks again for listening to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. And always remember, Assassins, stay in the shadows to serve the light.
Want to live better? We've got a lot of work to do. Join Chris Hemsworth in National Geographic's new Disney Plus original series, Limitless. Live Better Now.
I'm diving headfirst into cutting-edge science to uncover 3 powerful secrets to living better right now. The growth that occurs through any challenging experience is really what we seek.
Chris Hemsworth stars in Limitless. Live Better Now. Now streaming on Disney Plus and Hulu.
It's showtime.
This episode is brought to you by FX's Alien Earth, the official podcast. Each week, host Adam Rogers is joined by guests, including the show's creator, cast, and crew, in this exclusive companion podcast. They will explore story elements, deep dive into character motivations, and offer an episode-by-episode behind-the-scenes breakdown of each terrifying chapter in this new series. Search FX's Alien Earth wherever you listen to podcasts.